All right, guys. Josh, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate you being here, dude. We've been trying to get on the books here for a hot minute, but you're busy, and I'm apparently organizationally not the most well equipped. So we finally made it happen, dude. Thanks for being on the podcast with me, man.
Absolutely. Honored to be a part. Appreciate you very much. So however I can help, I'm happy
So yeah, that's what I like about you. You just got that nice southern drawl, and you're just willing to help. Remind me
to.
of home, baby. So. So, dude, talk to me a little bit. Tell me, for those that are listening that may not know you, maybe just give us a little like where you're at, what you do, a little bit of family. Just give us a little rundown of what you do, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my wife and I just celebrated our 19th anniversary last week. So yeah, so 19.
Let's
You think we
go.
have it figured out by now, but we're still trying to sort it all out. But we're believing for a great season, planning a big 20th. It's hard to believe 20 years next year. So it's just crazy. Life goes past real fast. But we're having a great time. We got two boys, two teenagers. So I got a 17-year-old son who's a senior in high school and a 14-year-old son who's now a freshman. So both of my kids are in high school. And so it's hard to think about, a few short years from now, maybe them going out on their own. So but it's a great season and just enjoying life with my family. That's the most important thing to me. And also pastor a church. And we're in Pensacola, Florida. We have a church with five physical campuses and then online. And so our campuses are around the Pensacola, Florida area. We started in Pensacola, but we now have a campus in South Alabama close by, and then some surrounding communities here. But yeah, so life is wild, crazy, busy, and exciting, and it's a good season.
Dude, that's freaking incredible. Like 19 years, bro. You've beat the curve, bro. Right? My wife Kim and I just celebrated 22 years. And we are notoriously non-celebratory for some reason when it comes to like anniversaries. You know what I mean? Like we both forget that it's our anniversary. It's like, we're not the typical where it's like the guy forgets and the wife's like, do you know what day it is? You know what I mean? Like we
Well,
both
it's better
forget.
that both of you forget. I can tell you that.
No, yeah,
If one of you are forgetful, then it's a problem.
it definitely will stir up some strife. So, yeah, 19 years, dude. Congratulations. What's your boys are in high school? They both play baseball. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, they're both high school baseball players, so that's a huge part of our life. I mean, they're very serious. So from travel ball to, they have aspirations maybe one day to play in college. That's a pretty big part of our life. And I always joke that, my big role as a dad for my kids, my sons right now, is to sit in the bleachers and give them a fist bump whenever they do something good on the baseball field. So to me, being there for my boys when they're playing. I always tell them like my favorite thing to do is watching you do your favorite thing. And so it's an important thing. I prioritize being there for my kids, but it's an intense schedule for sure.
Dude, I definitely want to talk more about that because um, one of the areas I want are like more of my conversations and conversations with guys like yourself is to get into the kind of masculine side of things, being a dad, being a leader, being, for those of who might chafe against it, being the head of your household,
Yeah.
being a biblical man, being unapologetically masculine. You know what I mean? Like that
Yep.
doesn't mean abusive. It doesn't mean, you walk around and flex your muscles on everybody. It literally just means you should be a stable force in the world that helps move things forward, protective, loving, caring, all the whole gamut. So I'd love to conversate a little bit more when we get going about, being a dad, dude, and what's that mean? And, you're raising men, you don't have those guys are almost men.
Yeah.
And in some cultures
Absolutely.
they are men, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
I'd love to chat about that, but talk to me a little
Great.
bit about just about your church. So one of the things I really love about you, Josh, is and this is where I get to, since it's my podcast, I get to say whatever I want. Um, is that you are you've got a great church. You and your wife have built a great church, you and your team. You've got 5 physical campuses, which for people who don't understand church, that's a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
most people stress out with one.
Yeah.
Okay. So you multiply that times 5. It's not just a multiplication of 5. You're like going up by factors of 5. Like it's exponential at that point. And you guys have built a great church. You've you've stayed humble. You've stayed together, and still you're like the best kept secret. Like nobody, like you're just out there just freaking plowing this thing and doing it, and there's no fanfare, there's no you making a big to do about it. You're just doing what God asked you to do. Talk to me a little bit about it, your church, how you started, um, how things are going, and just kind of like what you're seeing in this season. Is that, if you mind talking about that?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I've been on staff at our church for 20 it'll be 23 years in December. So,
So you
my
took over
story,
the church.
well, I mean, I took over yes, no, I didn't plan. I took over the church.
Okay.
So I started with the church really, and I mean, the church has been around for almost 60 years. So the church has been here in the community for a while. And I got involved sort of haphazardly, grew up as a pastor's kid and sort of ran away from the call of God on my life, and eventually started serving and volunteering. And people all the time ask me, like, when did you know you were going to be a lead pastor? And I'm like, I'm still not 100% sure about that. I just, my journey has been like one foot in front of the other. And honestly, I just find myself like, wow, I'm the most surprised among anybody that I'm where I'm at. But I was able to serve within youth ministry, kids ministry. And when I started at the church, it was much smaller, and got to see the church grow and develop. And was part of our first campus launch in 2006. So my wife and I started the first campus that we did. And and so our heart as a church really is to our communities really spread out, and so it wasn't necessarily feasible to impact the city. And for us, really the value of going where people are, as opposed to building some big building, expecting people to come to us, just didn't line up with really our heart. And so we've been on that journey now for quite a while. And our hope, and in fact, hopefully this fall we'll announce that our next campus, so it'll be our first campus post COVID. And we have it in our heart to plant 10 more campuses. And in particular, we want to go into smaller communities where you know people, there's not really necessarily a big church trying to go to. There's not very many church plants happening, but there's communities there and people there that candidly need a church that brings life into the community and can make an impact in smaller communities. So I'm really excited about that. That's really the thing that we're really excited about in this season. And yeah, so the church has done really well after post COVID. All the craziness that everybody went through, and just seeing for a long time it felt like we were managing a bad situation from COVID and all of its fallout. But now, full steam ahead, got a lot of momentum, and just exciting things that are happening for us. So it's a great season. And God has blessed us. We've gone through some tremendous challenges outside of COVID, and really, the backstory is a serious miracle of God's goodness. In spite of me, honestly, I'm sort of a reluctant lead pastor. I don't like all the fanfare. I don't like the attention that comes with it. I don't mean to try to sound humble, but honestly, my interest and my desire is just to try to be obedient, and God just continues to bless
Dude, that's why I love you. You know what I mean?
it.
You want a guy to have the job who would prefer not to have the job, in a sense, right? Because it comes with so
Or
much
maybe
influence.
yeah, maybe, yeah. I think that sometimes pastors and people, it doesn't matter what you do, but you have a tendency to build your identity around what you do. And to me, that's the trappings of a disaster and a tragedy. because no matter what it is, it's shaky foundation. And so growing up in a pastor's home gave me a unique perspective on some of that. And maybe living in a fishbowl since I could remember, both the positive aspects of people's expectations, but also the negative ones. And I think, for me, I just try to keep it simple, and it's really, just trying to serve and be wise, and be long, have a long range vision. I have a vision to plant one, or to pastor one church my whole life. And so I've been at it for 23 years in the same church, and gone through great challenges and incremental growth and over the years, um, and setbacks. But I want my story to be that long obedience in the same direction wins.
Dude, I
And
love that.
just up the middle type of, it's like up the middle football. Football is like 1, 2, or 3 yards at a time. And so I hope in the next 10, 15, 20 years, however much longer I have to really give it all, to serve one church faithfully, and see what God can do through it.
Dude, I love that. One, just love your heart. Love the fact that you guys are, you know, you have a vision for where you want to go. You have a vision for where you want to be, and that leads me into a bunch of things you said are very correlative to what I talk with people about. Because I think people think that, like, sometimes people think like, oh, he's a pastor and this guy's a fitness guy. The two worlds are very different. They're not, dude. Like, there's so much overlap because it's so much about process, mentality, having a vision, dealing with obstacles, dealing with upset, dealing with struggle, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
grow this church, you're trying to take care of your family, but you're also trying to take care of yourself. And there's just so much that overlaps. Talk to me a little bit about, okay, you've got 5 campuses. All right. That's stressful. All right. That's
Yeah.
asking a lot. Okay. And when we say stressful, we don't mean negative. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's stressful. You're like,
Yeah.
if you didn't have that stress, you'd be ticked because you wouldn't feel like you were
Mm.
doing anything with your life. So it's there's a guy, Chris Bumstead. I'm going to quote a bodybuilder. So, but one of his mottos is pressure is a privilege,
Mm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't have the pressure, you wouldn't have the growth, you wouldn't have the influence, you wouldn't have the things that come with pressure, which are all the things you want. So,
Yeah.
stop whining about the pressure and be thankful for the fact you got the position. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's good. It's good.
So
Yeah.
I love that. But, you and I started working together just to kind of make this fitness turn a little bit here. You came to me probably, what, maybe a year ago?
It was a year. It was a year ago. In fact, I saw the before photo the other day. And I think that it was like the first week of August. So it's literally like right at a year, right over. Yeah.
So talk to me about where you were when you came to me. Like, and we're talking
Yeah.
about fitness, like I've been coaching Josh, for over a year now. So talk to me about like where you were, what made you decide you needed help. Like, just walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. Sure. There's several things I could mention, but I think for me, and this isn't necessarily connected physically to my physical fitness, but I had come out of a really challenging, stressful season dealing with church stuff, dealing with family stuff, dealing with personal stuff, and candidly went through a season where I was battling depression, if I could just be so honest, and just a mental challenge, and just being overwhelmed in the tasks that I had and the burdens that I was carrying. And of course, the fallout from a lot of that is you get unhealthy in some other areas, and so you put on weight, you stop being active, your mentality, your mood shifts, and so you just don't have the energy that you need. And so when I came to you, it was, and I also had an injury too. So I blew out my knee a couple of years ago. So at the time, then I was running and working, but that threw a wrench in it. So I felt like I couldn't get around. So I knew that I needed to get back and do something. I couldn't run much because of my knee. And so, you just practically put on a bunch of weight. and just didn't feel good about life, didn't feel good about myself. And a friend of a friend kind of connected me like, yeah, this could be perfect for me because I don't really want to go to a local gym and connect with a trainer for, I need some private space to be able to work on some stuff. And I don't mean that in any weird way. It just works out better to have somebody that's coaching me from afar, and I could work at it in my own time. So for me, I came to that conclusion based on just my mental state more than my physical state. I needed to get my mind right and my energy right because I'm a firm believer that you can't compartmentalize your health and that it's all intertwined, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And a lot of times that's what we do. And I can be sharp as a tack spiritually, but be dull as dull as anything emotionally. And so it's just one component of my life that just had drifted into a place of unhealth. And, so yeah, so it started a journey for a year now. So it's been great.
So, dude, yeah, you're funny too. Like you'll text me and be like, bro, I missed it. I didn't make it today. And I'm like, you don't have to do that, but I love that you do it because it tells me that you're committed to this process. But so, okay, so you started putting on weight. You had a little injury, you had a little setback, putting on weight. How did all that affect you? Because that kind of stuff is like, it's like a negative feedback loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like one thing leads to the next thing, which just exacerbates the next thing. So, where did you feel it most? Did you feel it in your emotions, in your decision making, your ability to deal with pressure? Like, where'd you feel it the most?
Yeah, I think I'd say that, and I think maybe they're connected, but my energy, I just didn't have the energy. And
Mhm.
of course, when you don't have the energy, it's hard to make decisions. It's hard to get up for the things you need to get up for. And that affects your confidence. It affects your just clarity of mind if you just don't have the energy. So I was cloudy, and that affects your relationships too. So if you walk into it with, whether it's your wife or people you work with, if you're just down and don't have the energy to be the man that you need to be for your wife, for your kids, or for the team, then it's a problem. It's a problem much bigger than what you look like in the mirror. And do you like what's on the scale? And so that's really where I saw it the most, and was like, okay, something needs to change because I could go back in my life, and there've been seasons where I've made my fitness, my physical or exercise routine a priority, and it always just had a better outlook, a better mood, and so I knew I needed to recover it.
I love that because I find that as guys, they think that working out is about looking a specific way, and it can be, but
Mm-hmm.
taking care of yourself is more about having a vision for where I want to be and the kind of person I want to
Mm-hmm.
be today, right? It's not about having abs. Abs are awesome, right? Like if you have them,
I
great.
wouldn't know. I wouldn't
I'm
know. I
I'm
mean, I
just
don't know
saying, like
if
if you
I.
have them, great. But and if you can cut your grass with your shirt off and flex on all the other dads, great. You know what I mean? Like, but at the end of the day, it's really, are you able to physically show up for your family? Are you able to physically and mentally show up for your church, for the people you lead in your business or whatever? And to be honest with you, um, a lot of guys underestimate what a fitter physique, what that signals. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does that send out? You know what I mean? You don't have to have
Mm-hmm.
huge biceps. You don't have to have, you know, you don't have to be ripped. But when you walk into a room and you can tell somebody is taking care of
Yeah.
themselves or at least trying, you're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Immediately you notice discipline,
Yeah.
sacrifice, process. Like this guy he's doing something. And if
Yep.
somebody walks in and they're kind of, overweight, slovenly, not taking care of themselves, you're immediately like,
Yeah.
okay.
Can I follow this guy?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like people we like to say that example is the most important thing, but there's a quote that said example is not the most important thing, it's the only thing.
Mm.
It's truly the only thing people listen to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I love that. I love what you did. And we didn't even do that much to change for you. We just started focusing a little bit on diet, making sure you were sleeping, and you did start lifting quite a bit. You were lifting like 5 days a week, I think. And how much weight did you
Mhm.
drop?
I actually weighed myself today. I think it's today. Of course, it's up and it's down, but I think today it is 28 or 29 pounds.
That's huge, dude.
Yeah.
That's a small child,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I have to say, I got off a vacation. I went on a cruise, which is about the opposite of, choosing healthy options. It's just so it's funny. I came back, gained 8 pounds from my cruise. And, because you can't say no to the 24-hour ice cream and, oh gosh, it's terrible. But I was able to work those 8 pounds back off in the last 2 weeks. That's a good thing.
that's awesome, man. Like that's what I mean, but that's also why you exercise too. It gives you the margin to be able to choose
Hmm.
things like that. You know what I mean? Where I find people like it happens to me a lot. People are like, "Oh, Adam, are you eating bread? Are you eating that bread?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm eating this bread. I don't work out 6 days a week so I can eat salads."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like there has to be some margin here. So it's where like, do you listen to Jocko Willink at all?
No.
No, he was a former SEAL commander, does all this stuff. He has a podcast and he's like super intense, like he's like the most intense guy. But he has a saying that says discipline equals freedom, right? So the more disciplined you are, the more freedom you can express without guilt, right? So it's like
Yeah.
having a budget, having discipline in your budget
Mhm.
gives you freedom when you have extra money to go purchase the things you want to purchase. It's the same thing with exercising, right? It's like, no, I do this so that I can do the things that I want to do, not so that I can live like a monk, right? So if you
Yes.
don't gain 8 pounds on a cruise, you didn't do it right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, there is a part, and this may fly in the face of a lot of the fitness stuff, but there is a part that actually indulging and appreciating some sweet things in life is actually a part of your health. I mean, it's
100%.
everything within reason. And so, there are things that should be enjoyed,
Hmm.
that that may not necessarily, if you have a habit and a routine of complete indulging, it's a problem. But to me, it just would never work if I like tried to go into this of being so strict about it that I was just going to scrutinize every meal and scrutinize everything that I did. And I just, and it's no excuse. It's just not my personality. I'm not really. I mean, I could have much better results. I mean, if I got more serious about it, I could be further along than I am today. But I'm content and happy, and my approach has been just try to plot along and be consistent. And where because I travel a lot, and so that presents complications to being able to stay on top of things. I mean, pastors are constantly at meetings and called to lunches, and so it's not really practical. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but it's very difficult to be just a stickler on everything. And so for me, I just realized that it's gonna be 3 steps forward and a step back, and 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And if I just keep plotting along and get better and go through some intense times where I give it my all, knowing that I got seasons where I may not be able to, I'm gonna be fine. And so for me, the results, it's like if you look over a year, it's up and to the right. But if you narrow in at certain months, it's going to look like this. It's going to look down and up. So over the long haul, you see the progress, and so that's been my journey. I know that there's plenty of other people that've had better results, but for me, I've been able to stick to it. And in order for me to stick to it, it's got to be something sustainable. And sometimes that means I have to take a break. And so, yeah.
I love that. Like that's you're actually really sharing a lot of what I try to teach people. Is that one? It has to be sustainable. If you can't do it for a long time, there's no reason to start it unless you just know you have a short time frame to do this. It's kind of like pastoring a church. You know what I mean? It's like slow and
Hmm.
steady is going to win that race. It's like
Hmm.
guys who want to explode overnight. You don't even know what you're asking for, right? Like
Nope.
you are asking for more headache and more problems than you have ever dealt with. So slow, steady progress is literally the key, to
Yes.
managing and adapting and being able to deal with it. And I also like the fact that you're talking about using strategies that work for your personality,
Hmm.
right? Some people, like I know guys, they want to track everything that goes in their mouth. They're the spreadsheet people. You know what I mean? They're the guys that like look at spreadsheets and love it. They want to, they love decimal points and stuff. And I'm like, well, let's track every calorie then. Let's do this. Let's have a great day. And then there's other people who are like, dude, I just need to give you like 3 rules and you just need to try to stick to these rules for the most part. You know what
Yep.
I mean? And then if you start losing weight, great. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
so finding a strategy that works for yourself is a huge deal, and I share that with people too. It's like one, you first of all you got to have you got to have a goal, but then you got to have a strategy that's sustainable. So talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing. So you've been on this health journey, okay? You've been on this health journey. You've lost almost 30 pounds, which I think it was 30. It goes back and forth, which it should, right? Mine does that, right? So it's okay. Some people are like, I need to be this exact weight forever. It's like, dude, if you eat something and you just don't go to the bathroom, you're gonna weigh more than that. It's okay, you know. So you're down 30 pounds, but you also do other work um, to help pastors. Like you have a retreats that you do and things like that. Can you would you mind kind of digesting a little bit or just sharing a little bit on what you're seeing with other pastors, why you feel like there's a need for these retreats, why, like, what are you seeing in the pastoral culture or, that, would lead you to see, be like, dude, I need to start these retreats. What's
Mm.
that about?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's connected to my own journey, right? I went through a traumatic events and things that were happening, battling a lot of things. And honestly, I went on a retreat, and when I did, it was like felt like the first time I hadn't breathed in like a year, and so it was so life giving to me personally, and that I was like, wow, I've got to incorporate some new rhythms into my normal life. And just by default, I was connected to a bunch of pastors and leaders as friends, and and in fact, previously had a ran a network of pastors, and I just shifted my focus to say I don't really want to create an organization that is a it's a formality for people to belong to. I'd rather have a genuine brotherhood of people that know that when they lead, they're not leading alone. And so, a big myth that people have outside of the church world is that pastors are healthy by default. And then, it seems like there's this expectation that because you're the man of God, then things just happen for you. And it's just not the case. And it actually creates an unhealthy environment for pastors and leaders to be human, to be open about what they're walking through. It's amazing. I was talking to a group of friends the other day who are pastors about how every pastor knows the feeling of walking up to preach and someone slipping you a note or sending you an email about a tragic event that just happened, and somehow having to you know compartmentalize your own feelings about tragedy and then go and lead. And I've been to 100 and how God knows how many funerals that I've been a part of, but it's very few of them that I've been able just to sit and grieve like everybody else. And so there's the pressures that pastors feel because they're supposed to be healthy. In fact, their whole life is on the line for their own health. I mean, their qualifications as a pastor is connected to their well-being spiritually, and so their decisions have great consequences, and most of them fear destroying their lives and their church and their community if they uncovered their humanity. And yet, every pastor, every human being will walk through the inevitable crash of a tragic event that happens to them and something that they do as well. And hopefully, they can do that in a way where they can maintain their integrity and be able to move forward. But it's like the old quote that says it's better to have a fence at the top of a cliff and an ambulance at the bottom. And,
Wow.
so often what we do is we create this environment where it's not inherently healthy for pastors and leaders to be normal human beings who are following and loving Jesus. And and then throws stones at it the moment that they have a struggle or a challenge like every other human being that's ever existed in the history of mankind, be accused of being a fraud or feel like that they're fake as a result of just being a normal person. And so we started creating a retreat just so that pastors and leaders could be human and could build genuine relationships with people that candidly aren't impressed by their church, or they're not there to learn about how they're doing their church, but more about, we're here because we love you and we're impressed by you, and we're not threatened by your success or your failure. We just know that if you're leading lonely, then you're a tragedy in the making, and you got to have people around you. And for me, I learned something, and I apologize for going too long about it, but
Yeah.
a
Talk.
value that I have is that recreation is sacred. And one thing that I didn't know and understand is that, um, and for me, the life that came to me, I needed rest, but what I also needed to do was learn to play again and enjoy the things that God had blessed me with. If not, for me, it sort of just became a duty and an obligation where I'm obedient to serve God. And yet I failed many times to look around and realize that God had provided so many things for me to enjoy, but I was too busy to.
Mm.
And so when
Wow.
I made it a priority to say I'm not a slave, there's a reason that the Bible in the Old Testament, God commands his people to have festivals and feasts. And he's trying to train a group of slaves how to be free. And part of
Wow.
learning to be free is learning to celebrate the right things. And I just couldn't celebrate anymore. So for us, a retreat is less about here's the Bible and here's what you need to do to build a big church, as much as it is we're here to play. And a merry heart is good medicine, right? If you're sick, maybe the most important thing you do is have a good belly laugh. And it's life-giving and life-changing, and that environment of play opens the door for guys to open up. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've never told anyone this before,
Mm.
because there's a place of safety that's built,
Hmm.
and that's healing. And if pastors and leaders don't have those kind of environments or relationships, then we're just going to continue to perpetuate what has become so common, that pastors blow up or burn out. And so we're doing what we can to serve and love pastors and leaders, by providing them a place to play.
I love it, man. You can tell you're passionate about it, dude. Um,
Yeah.
I love it because I've seen the same things. I want to hear from you, like what what are some of the things that obviously we're not naming names or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things you find these guys dealing with? I mean, like you mentioned, you had a little depressive time. Like I have dealt with depression the majority of my life. Um, and fitness and exercise have been a huge part in helping me to work with that. You know what I mean? Like I like how you said, you wanted to work out at home because you might need some time to, it's like a process time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you work out, sometimes you work it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, sometimes I
Yep.
just work out all my problems on that bar. Um,
Yep.
like what are some of the things that you're seeing guys struggle with? Obviously there's imposter syndrome and there's all this other stuff. So just like, because I think a lot of people who listen to this, a lot of people will be pastors or Christians, but some people just they don't have a window to view into this world, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're sitting in the seats and they're just seeing the show in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. You know what I mean? They're seeing the lights, they're seeing
Mm-hmm.
the Instagram accounts and pastors over here doing this and he's travel over here doing that. But all of it comes at a cost. Every bit of it
Mm-hmm.
comes at a cost. And I'd love to hear from you kind of what you're seeing, what the cost is for guys, but then also I'm sure there's some hope that you're seeing
Oh
too.
yeah.
You're seeing guys really change their lives. So would you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd first just say that pastors have the same struggles that everybody else has. So any conversation you have with any other group of people, they go, okay, I'm struggling with being a dad and what to do with my kids and how to take care of them, our finances, et cetera, all that stuff. But much of it is sort of uh, it's exaggerated and is multiplied because of the pastor, the leader, and the expectation that's placed on them. So everything, I mean, the whole myth that people say pastors are just in it for money. Well, that's offensive to most pastors because not only is that not true, the opposite is typically the truth. And so you got pastors that are stressed out because they're trying to figure out how to take care of their families.
Yep.
And they're good men who are serving faithfully. And, it's not that I mean, I just don't know any of those pastors that people talk about. So financial burden is a big part of it. And what does that mean for their future? I mean, I'm walking pastors through all kinds of questions about their retirement and how can they actually walk away because they've never had any ability financially to be free. So, big part of it is what do I do with my children? You have Bible verses that talk about pastors and elders making sure that their house is in order. Well, that's a pressure, but here's the deal. I don't know. I've never met a kid that didn't have any problems, and I never met teenagers that didn't wander. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
True.
And so, and so you add on the expectation of hundreds, maybe thousands of people onto your family. It creates a pressure cooker. So typical issues related to marriage. I mean, and many pastors don't feel like they can go see a counselor because that would uncover something in them or it makes them feel like that they're not, measuring up to the standards. And so, but I've seen hopelessness and despair from pastors and leaders who lead successful, thriving churches that get in a hole. And the reason that I'm kind of intentional, and I mentioned I've walked through depression, is I'm trying to set a tone and normalize that everybody has challenges and struggles
Mm.
to draw people in. But I've heard pastors talk about, they're thinking about suicide and or at minimum just wanting to be done and wanting to be out because it feels hopeless. And this isn't because they've committed some deep dark sin. It just many of them feel stuck. And but they're not alone in that. You go back in the scripture. I mean, Paul was overwhelmed to the point of death. Jesus himself was, wrestled with, the burden and the pressure of what it meant to fulfill God's call on his life. Moses wanted God to kill him now. Jeremiah wanted out. So I'm not making light of that, and I think that, but I'm just saying that the real issues when it comes down to it, and people have an opportunity to share, then we all have stuff that we have a difficult time trusting others with. But at the same time, the book of James says that we confess our faults, we confess what's happening in our life, and
Mhm.
we pray for each other that healing is there. So some of the most profound ministry experiences I've ever seen have happened in environments where pastors and leaders, are uncovering their own challenges and struggles. And they realize that when they do, then no one's coming out to get them, but everybody's rallying in support of them. And so, that is the thing that absolutely, you know, maybe the most meaningful thing I get to be a part of, because I know that if a pastor is well, then his church is going to be well, and the community is going to be well, and his family is going to be well.
It's awesome because it's such an exponential, um, it's an exponential effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you take this leader who people are looking to help guide them through their lives, and if you can help that guy or girl or couple to thrive in the normal human way, like
Mm-hmm.
mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and deal with some things, but then also equipping them for how to lead honestly through that,
Mm-hmm.
like letting other people know that, hey, these are some things that might be happening, and just being human. I mean, you are changing generations when you do that. Like
Absolutely.
you're affecting thousands of people, households when you do that. So it's I don't like, I don't see it as an understatement to be like, pastors, like, bro, we need you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we need you. And this is why we talk about getting in shape, man. You don't need to do a bodybuilding competition, but you should be able to you should be able to run around the block. You should be able to pick up your kid, and play in the yard, and you shouldn't have high blood pressure and all this other stuff. Like, you need to take care of yourself, but then also on top of that, all of those things are, we need to take care of ourselves emotionally, we need to take care of ourselves mentally, and dealing with that stuff and being around guys and people who you can be honest with, right?
Yeah.
You can't be
Yep.
honest with dudes that are like in the same boat with you, then bro, you're up. I'm about to say something from Louisiana. You're up shit creek without a paddle. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just you're just
Well, what's the scripture? There's a Bible verse. I'm a pastor, so I can give a Bible verse for anything. But
let's
one of the
go.
things I always think about that, and the Proverbs that says, "A man of many companions comes to ruin, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother." So I think that the challenge is pastors that are really alone. They have people around them, but everybody, for many of the people that are around them, are people that need something from them, or that the pastor needs something from the individual. So it creates a dynamic that is tragically dangerous,
Hmm.
because it gives the illusion of connection and community without the real connection of what it means to have a friend.
Hmm.
And so, I just think that that's such a rich commentary on what's happening for pastors and for anybody for that matter. We have with social media. I mean, you're connected to tons and tons and tons of people, but that's not really what you need. What you need is a handful of people that love you but aren't impressed by all that you do, and that just care about you and willing to step in. What is the Ecclesiastes says? Pity the man who falls down and has no one to help him up. So if you don't have people around you that's positioned to help get you recovered, then you're a tragedy waiting to happen.
Dude, that's really strong, by the way. But I love that, um, the mindset there, where, you quoted Proverbs, a man of many companions comes to ruin, but there's one that sticks closer than the brother. A lot of times when we read that, especially as preachers and pastors, the one is Jesus, right? It's always Jesus. But you know what I mean? Like, you're like, yeah, Jesus does stick closer than a brother. You know what I mean? But I think in that scripture, if we look at it, I think the point is to look for the one person who's going to stick
Yeah.
closer than a brother for you. Not just
Yep.
Jesus, but an actual brother, like someone, another man who's willing to go to the mats for you, who's willing to fight people in the front yard for you,
Mm-hmm.
put up with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, just cuss you out if necessary, hug you
Yep.
when necessary, cry with you. But you have to find that one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then when you do that, you are setting yourself up for success,
Yep.
because Ecclesiastes also says a three-chord strand is not easily broken. You know how, it's talking about two fighting back to back. If one falls,
Mm-hmm.
the other can help him up. You know what I mean? It's like there's this
Mm-hmm.
whole warrior ethos that we see in the scripture, and very rarely is it you exemplify one warrior by himself. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'll be like, so and so killed everybody in a field of lentils. That's, you
Yep.
see this, but that guy was just the commander, right?
Yeah.
He didn't kill
Yeah.
everyone. He had a bunch of dudes with him who were like, nope, not today. We
Mm-hmm.
smoking some fools in this lentil field, right? So it's like, but there's this brotherly, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just this companionship that I feel like you're tapping into, and I think you saw a need, so you decided to do something about it, which thank God for you, because the last thing we need is more activists in the world, people
Mm-hmm.
who talk about crap and don't do anything. um,
Yeah.
so I'm super thankful for that. And what like what do you feel is the consequence of guys who are just not pushing in on this. Like, what do you like? I know you're saying you're a tragedy waiting to happen, but like, let's push down on that a little bit. What's the real consequence of guys
Mm,
who are out there just doing it themselves? Like, what can they expect?
mm. I was talking to somebody last week. We were talking about some of what we did, and they were discussing, if you don't take care of yourself, you might have to pay for counseling for a couple months, or you might have to, take off of work for a month. And that was the height of the cost. And I was like, no, bro, like the cost is losing your livelihood if you're a pastor. So you no longer have your ability to take care of your family if you disqualify yourself, you destroy your life. So that's a heavy thing. And many pastors, this is what they do. So they don't have there's no plan B. You lose your reputation. You lose any honor that you had. I mean, you lose your family potentially. You lose your wife. You lose any good standing and reputation.
Wow.
The consequences is it's hard to even state. You lose everything. You lose everything. And unfortunately, I've been able to walk with some guys that have been in that situation, and you have to rebuild everything. And I'm not saying that other people don't have those same consequences, but the consequences are so pronounced. And outside of the pressure of knowing that you failed God, or you even at work might have felt God is bad, misrepresented him. Now that people have, now that your life has been trying to lead people to Jesus, and now because of blowing your life up, now people walk away from God. Those are all heavy things that are inescapable for pastors and leaders to think about. And so, yeah, I mean, the consequences cannot be more severe related to a pastor that doesn't maintain his own health and maintains spiritual sharpness and his personal integrity. And to me, having people in your life, and I don't mean people that just know you, but people that you journey with, that know what's happening in your life. It's inevitable. It's predictable,
Mm.
and you either be a shell and you become a shell of a man, or just hide your whole life, or you destroy yourself. And I know that that sounds severe, but I think that that's the reality.
It is. It is. I mean, you think about it, like if you just take the physical consequences of not taking care of yourself, right? I mean, what's the number one killer of people in the West right now? Heart disease, right? It's a lifestyle disease. It's a metabolic issue. It's killing 700,000 people a year.
Mm,
Okay. And all it is it's neglect. For
mm,
most people, it is neglect. It is just not doing the thing you know you should be doing in order to take care of yourself. And I think that if you just take that over to an emotional and like relational point of
mm,
view, which are factors of health, your emotional health,
mm,
your mental health, your relational health, um, if you just take that over, a lot of guys are dying of heart disease as well. On the relational
mm,
side, they're just not taking care of themselves. They're not connecting with other people. They're not getting in, having that band of brothers, in a sense,
mm,
not to be too war happy. But I love Band of Brothers, one of my favorite series ever. Um,
mm.
but I see this amongst people, right? Like this is one reason why I try to do what I do. Is what I feel like I'm called to do, which is to help pastors and leaders to refocus on their health, not just physical. Physical is the thing that I'm good at, but as a voice, I want to push them to do other things as well. Like, hey, you need to connect with guys in your same sphere. You need to have a guy who's willing to look at you and go, bro, what on earth are you actually doing? You know what I mean? Like, you need a friend that's going to be like, don't hire that assistant.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like how many guys need to fall before you hire a dude as your assistant.
Yep.
Or
Exactly.
whatever it takes for you. Make the decisions. Have friends with you that are going to push you. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I'm just so heartbroken at seeing guys who come to me and they're like, dude, they're obese. They're morbidly
Hmm.
obese, and
Hmm.
they think it's because they're not working out. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, okay, that's part of it. That's part of it. But there's a lot of other factors here, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just thankful that you are taking that initiative like straightforward, because we need guys like that. Hopefully I can attend and come and be a part of what you guys are doing. I'd love any chance to just be a guy and hang out with other dudes. I'm in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if we end up
Well, you're
wrestling or
in.
something, I'm in. You know what I mean?
Just don't judge it. Don't judge us when we're eating too much food.
I don't. That's what people think. People are like, "Hey, Adam's here. Hide your plate." I'm like, "No, that looks delicious. Can I have some? Are you going to eat that?" You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's what I told somebody the other day. I was like, I don't work out this much and take care of myself so much so that I can live like a monk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to have pizza, bro. I'm trying to have
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
ice cream. It's just not every day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, I want to get back to so I want to go back to real quick because we're pushing an hour here. You talked about raising sons, and we kind of talked about manhood a little bit there.
Mhm.
Okay, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I think it's something that I feel like the Lord is putting on my heart to grow more into, which is, I know I'm a man, like I know, like I'm not hype, people have referred to me as like hyper masculine, but I don't see myself as that. I see myself as more uh like like a renaissance man. Like I'd rather be like, what do they say? It's like you'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Right?
That's good. Yeah.
Right. So that's the way I think. I think, okay, I would rather be like Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you listen to Jordan Peterson at all.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, if you
Yeah.
listen to him, like, first of all, you got to go back and slow it down and then try to follow it over and over.
Think.
Yeah, just like, okay, let me stop and process that for the next 20 minutes. But he talks about how you should be dangerous. Like you should be dangerous. You should have the capability of being dangerous, but then learn how to rein that in, right? Because that's where masculinity lies. It's in that control, right? I
Hmm.
don't think people who are violent and overly testosterone filled and just bully people, those guys are not men. Those guys are bullies. But I think people who have the capacity for being dangerous but know how to guide that is true masculinity, right? And it can express itself as love, it can express itself as care, it can express itself as protection. And you're raising young men who, I mean, honestly, you're about to send them out in the world. Can you just kind of talk to me about like your heart, your thought around just one, raising boys into men, and then just masculinity in general? Like, because I feel like like you're obviously a very masculine guy, but you're not going to be like, hey, let's arm wrestle. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you're just like we're just not like that. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't
Yeah.
be like, I'm gonna go pick a fight with Josh. You know what I mean? Like I'm just not gonna. Why? Because Josh is obviously formidable. So you know what I mean? But talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about that. That's something that's really getting close to my heart, and I kind of want to start delving into that a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind, just maybe
Yeah.
unpack that a little bit.
Well, it's something I think about all the time, mainly because of my two boys. And, we always joke that we're not raising children, we're raising men. And, so hopefully that's the trajectory we set them on. And so for me, I think that men have to recover this role that they're meant to play of strength. Like and honestly, part of what I'm doing within my own health is a part of that, because I do think even health almost feels not masculine. It's like I was telling somebody the other day, it's like I prefer strength than health. And I know that that's a dynamic part of it. Health obviously is a big piece of it, but
It
real
comes with
strength. And of
strength, though.
course, the problem is Yeah. The problem is, we have projected strength and we have strength that we pose for and trying to, feel important. And I just think that um, as men, our role, and I think just as a dad, especially in this season where my kids are not young, they're not babies, that the most important thing I can do for them is set the example for them to follow. And that's real strength because it's one thing to tell them what to do, and it's one thing to preach at them, discipline them. All that stuff is
Mhm.
important. But I think what we really need is men. It's like, where can a faithful man be found? That's what the scripture says. It's like an uncommon man is somebody that's just consistent and faithful to the things that matter most. And the last thing we need is more posers and more people that refuse to assume responsibility for their life and for their family's life. So I don't know if that speaks to it, but I think that
It does.
especially in our day and age where there's so much confusion around it, as a man and as a woman, that there's very distinct roles that you play both within a society and as a family that I think is important for us you know, to strengthen, to nurture. And my sons hopefully one day will grow up not only as protectors, but also as servants. And that's their job. That's my job is to serve, is to serve my family at my own hurt. And that's what real strength looks like, is to sacrifice everything for them if I had to. And of course, that's inherent to men. That's why firemen can leave and go to work and leave their family and run into a building without thinking of the consequences, is because that's masculinity, is sacrificing yourself to serve somebody else.
Dude, that's strong, man. I really resonate with that, because in our day and age, and this, I don't mind talking about cultural issues. I don't like to get too political, just because
Yeah,
no one can have a discourse anymore. Apparently, you know what I
yeah.
mean. It's like, if you feel one way, you hate me. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, okay. Um, but I think there's so much confusion around this, where we're pitting sexes against each other. Like, people are getting online and being like, what do we even need men for? And then you got guys going and trying to play in girl sports. And, there's just a
Yeah.
lot of craziness going on. And I think we need voices that are saying, no, we need both. Like,
Hmm.
we need both. We need strong, masculine, caring men, and we need
Yes.
intelligent, feminine, strong women. Like, that's what we need. That's what makes our society work. That's how God designed it, right? Like,
Hmm.
not one is better than the other, but they're both needed, and they both fulfill very specific roles.
Yes.
And those roles are not separated based on value. They're separated based
Yep.
on purpose, drive, ability, right? Like in my
Yep.
house, I do all the cooking in my house. I do. Every meal. I cook every meal. Why? Because I cook better. Right? My wife's like, I don't cook good.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's
Who's
like,
going to cook in our marriage? Whoever does it better. That's who's going to
exactly.
do
If you want to eat good,
it.
you know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody trying to be upset at every meal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, like,
Well,
I do, of
I think that one thing that comes to mind with that, Adam, I think you talk about some of the cultural underpinnings, and you could highlight one issue or another, but
course.
I think that what's also tragic, but also something that should inspire men specifically, is that many of our issues culturally is downstream of a father who didn't do what they were supposed to do. And whether it's fatherlessness or absent fathers or fathers that are not involved, and or men that have hurt women or hurt people, have been abusers. And so I think we also at the same time have to go, okay, we're also part of the problem. I mean, you could go, I can't rattle off the stats, but I think somewhere 80 to 90% of the men that are in prison come from fatherless homes. And it's just so dramatic of an impact of a
Mhm. Of
man who, and I'm not judging or I'm not
course not.
presuming about
I get it.
what that means. I'm just saying that to your point, a lot of the confusion and stuff that's happening in our world, if you go upstream to many of those problems, you'll find a man who fell down on his job. At
So
least a big part of that.
yeah, it's you know, we want to act like, and this is just my own personal take, and if people get mad, that's okay. You don't have to listen. But I believe that men play such an important role that because we have abdicated, many of us, our dads or grandfathers who have abdicated their roles, we're sitting in the consequences of that, right?
Hmm.
And not only we get it, not only is culture kind of attacking masculinity, we get it that there's this like this onslaught of it, but some of it is rightfully deserved, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's okay.
It's a reaction, or at some point an overreaction to
Mhm.
the abuses and the, extremes with it. So we have to in some ways empathize with people's real struggle, I think, and understand, this we oftentimes deal with issues symptomatically, right? And the symptom oftentimes, there's a root, and you can give someone Kleenex, but that doesn't fix a cold, right? That's just how you manage it. And so for me, it's like we also have to understand our role and part to play in the healing that's necessary in our culture, which is maybe slow. And I think we can stand up for what's true and right, but if you do that without a demonstration of something different, you're just a loudmouth and you don't have any influence. And so, yeah, I think it's critical. And I think about that as my kids, I mean, and the challenge is my sons, and I know with your daughter, you do anything for your kids, and you would, I mean, there's just nothing I wouldn't do, but at the same time I still go, man, I think in some areas I've failed my kids. I've fallen down on them because I, wasn't present or didn't say something that I needed to
Mhm.
say or didn't address issues. So, or maybe something was happening in my own life or I couldn't be present like I wanted to.
Mhm.
So I even have to own my own, failure as a father, even though my heart is to be the best dad in the whole world. You know, there's also some things that I've fallen down on myself, and thank God by His grace, I've been able to, largely keep it intact. But uh, at the same time, some humility is necessary for some of those issues, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a huge missing component to the masculinity that we are presented with. We're presented with like this unbending kind of mentality, but I think that true masculinity, true fatherhood, being a good husband is first rooted in humility and the ability to say I was wrong and then adapt and try to do better the next time. Just
Hmm.
like with my daughter, um, like I'm a Cajun, I'm a hothead at times, and I can just snap. You know what I mean? Like we have that, right? And that's not like a cultural thing. That's a character flaw. Like that's what that
Hmm.
is. It's a character flaw where I like say something too quick or I'm a little too gruff with her. And she's 12 and she's like 70 pounds. Like she's the cutest thing ever. But I have to go to her and say, "Hey baby, I'm like as your dad, I'm very sorry that I did that. Like that's not how people should respond. No one should respond that way. I'm going to try to do better." You know what I mean? And like so by humbling myself, I actually
Hmm.
elevate myself in her view
Yes.
because now she's like, "Oh, okay, my dad is a normal person,
Yep.
kind. He can admit when he's wrong, and she's still struggling with like the admitting when she's wrong part, she's like, but if we model that, if I feel like if I model that, then I'm setting a good example for who she may marry one day. You
Yeah.
don't want to marry somebody. I don't want my daughter marrying somebody who I'm just going to have to go beat up. You know what I mean? Like, because that will happen. You know what I'm saying? Um,
I'm sure it will.
but I think true masculinity, like you said, it's like I believe it starts in humility and the ability to have a vision for where I want to be and then
Yeah.
constantly working, tweaking, adjusting, um, starting over if necessary to try to keep pushing every day towards that goal. You know what I mean? Of being the
Yes.
best person that I can be,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I love that you're talking about consistency. You're talking about the long haul. You're talking about, these are all the things like I preach to people every time we're
Hmm.
talking about fitness, They're like, "Man, I don't want to work out." And I'm like, "Nobody wants to work out. Get your butt in there." Like,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want
Yep.
them love handles either. So make a choice. You know what I mean? Um, so I really
Which one
appreciate.
do you
Go
love
ahead.
more?
Exactly.
Which one do you love? Which one do you love more? You know?
And well, the problem is you only hate the gym when you're tired. You love it, when you feel
Yeah.
great, but you hate them love handles all the time. So
One thing you said about your daughter just sparked something in me is like I think sometimes when we own our shortcoming is actually a better picture of integrity. It's almost like your kids. Guess what? Here's the deal. My sons know that I'm not perfect. They don't. They don't. It doesn't require me to apologize for them to go. Oh. But it does something when I actually say what they already know, and it frees them up to become and hopefully to model something different. And so your stock goes way higher when you are living in line with how people know you are. It's like, if you can, it's like the scripture that says that God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Well, so do people. People have all kinds of grace for people who are genuinely humble, even if it's, just honest, real stuff. But if you ever try to pretend as if you're a know-it-all or got it all figured out, it's like stiff arm, right? And so I think that sometimes for to be a man, it feels like at times you got to posture and you got to pose to be something that maybe you're not, as opposed to saying, yeah, no, I need real strength. And sometimes real strength, again, as a pastor, is boasting in weakness. When I'm weak, he's strong. And part of that is going, okay, I know where I fall short. I'm honest about it. And I'm seeking the right kind of help in it. It draws people in. And, because I know my kids are going to, your daughter probably won't, but my kids are going to do something dumb in the future. And that doesn't, that's not necessarily a reflection on them as much as how they respond when they do. What happens when they recover? And I think about that. I think about my fitness journey with you. There's been many times where I'm like, man, I'm traveling, I'm going for a week, I've got to go on vacation, or I got meetings, or I'm at this or that. I got to take off for a week. And the thing, and this isn't to pat my own back because this is not something that I typically do, but actually taking off for 2 weeks and being, ignoring and neglecting the things I should have been doing, and saying I just got to push back through. I've come too far. I just got to keep pushing back. And
mhm.
I think that's the secret, as much as consistency, because I've been inconsistent. If you take a year, there's been several weeks along the way where I wasn't consistent. But the thing that I tried to do, and I have done, is get back at it and recover the loss that I had, for, being gone or whatever. So,
I think that you're speaking a lot of truth there, because I've what like the key to success is going to always be consistency, right? It's just like if you stick at something longer than the guy next to you, you're going to end up winning, right?
mhm.
And I think and we're going to start wrapping up here in a second, but I think the
Yeah.
real the real win is when people understand the power of like the reset. Just
Mhm.
just it doesn't have to be an event. It doesn't have to be a calendar event. It doesn't have to be, you know,
Mhm.
you don't have to make a huge deal about it. Okay, you got off track, you get back on track tomorrow. And you don't tell nobody, you don't whine about it, you don't make a big deal about it, you just freaking do it. And then every time you get off track, you get back on track the next day. Like
Mhm.
if you can get that mentality, it's the same thing relationally. Like if me and my wife get in a fight, all right, we got in a fight, we said some stuff, let's apologize and we're gonna move on. Right?
Yep.
I'm not gonna sit there, I'm not gonna feel bad for myself. I'm not gonna talk about how I don't like her, and I'm not gonna think of bad names, and I'm not gonna do all that. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
get back on track. Like, hey, I love this woman and I'm moving forward. Right?
Hmm.
Same thing with your fitness. It's like, dude, you know how many people text me and they're like, bro, I was sick this week. I didn't have, like I get it every day. And I'm like, all right, well, take care of yourself, get back on track, no excuses. That's what I always say. No excuses, just get back on track. All right. Even if
Yeah.
you show up and you're halfway there, doesn't matter. Show up, no excuse, get back on track. Because the key to winning is consistency, right? It's just if you're going to win in your health, you're going to win and grow in your church, you're going to win in, trying to raise your kids or be a good husband, you got to learn to take the obstacles, take a fall, get back up, dust yourself off, and just keep walking forward.
Yep.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? I
I love
love
what
that.
I think it was Albert Einstein that said the most powerful thing in the universe is compounding interest, right? It's like little bit of progress over a long period of time. It's true in your money, it's true in your
Wow.
spiritual life, it's true physically, but we're enamored by the long bomb kind of approach and dramatic. And I prefer an up the middle kind of football offense, two or
That
three
hard
yards at a
nose,
time.
just
And
hard nose, just grind them
yeah,
into the ground, baby.
I think about that in my ministry too. It's been 23 long years. There's been some great moments along the way, but really it's been just incremental, little by little, over a long period of time, has dramatic results.
Dude, I think that's the ending note right there. Compounding interest is the most powerful thing in the universe, right? Just
Hmm.
a little step each day, moving forward in your health, in your relationships. But the key to that is the moving forward. It's day by day, right?
Yep.
Um, there's no, like I tell people all the time, there's no like neutrality in any of this. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. Like you're not Switzerland. You know what I'm saying? You're not just I'm not involved on either side. You know what I mean? No, you're either going forward or you're going back. So, Josh, I really appreciate you, man. It's inspiring to see one, what you're doing at your church, two, how you're leading your family, and then three, that you are personally taking responsibility to help pastors, which is a great, uh, is a great, very close to my heart. Um, do you have any like, you know, do you have any like parting words? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I just say, Adam, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your heart to serve and help people like me. And you got a great temperament to deal with people that are all over the place. And I don't need a policeman. I don't need someone hovering. So you do a great job in balancing that tension of, probably wanting to get on and get hard at the same time, encourage. So it's been a great journey. I've really enjoyed it. I'm um, I I just feel better about myself. I feel
Good.
better about my life. I'm motivated to continue to progress. My wife doesn't throw up when I take my shirt off anymore. So
Yes. Yes.
if you're looking for testimonials as well,
Testimonials. Hey.
I no longer throw up when he takes his shirt off in front of me. No, but I appreciate you, man. Honestly, sincerely, appreciate what you do for me, but also appreciate what you're doing. And I know that what you do is not just career ambition, but it's very obviously God's got a call in your life, and so we need other men like you that are pursuing God and what He's placed in your heart for that may not look like traditional ministry. So well done.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch soon, eh?
Absolutely, love you,
All
man.
right. I love you.